A girl walked into school wearing a full outfit of designer brands, immediately drawing the attention of many classmates. It turns out she comes from a wealthy family and receives a daily allowance of $300,000. On social media, she has millions of followers. Her daily outfits are often copied by other students. The main character, Hwarang, entered the classroom and was warmly greeted by her classmates. However, she responded with a cold and aloof attitude. She noticed a girl sitting at her desk. The girl immediately realized her mistake and quickly stood up to leave, but Hwarang stopped her. Reluctantly, the girl wiped down the desk before leaving. Behind the scenes, this girl had been secretly jealous of Hwarang. Out of envy, she spread false rumors about her. Although Hwarang had heard many of these stories, she chose to ignore them. Then, through a fan's private message, Hwarang discovered that someone was using her photos to run a fake account on a social media platform, an account that had already gained a significant following. Coincidentally, the same girl was just then bragging to her classmates that she had used Hwarang's photos to get herself a handsome boyfriend. But moments later, she began receiving countless messages from netizens criticizing her. It turned out Hwarang had just publicly clarified that the account was fake and not hers. At that moment, Hwarang happened to walk by. The jealous girl, now furious, stopped her and angrily asked why she would expose her like that. Hwarang responded with a few words on behalf of her fans and turned to leave. But the girl, unwilling to let it go, grabbed Hwarang's hand in a fit of rage, accidentally causing Hwarang's phone to fall and smash on the ground. This time, Hwarang was truly angered. She grabbed the other girl's phone and, without hesitation, smashed it on the ground. Then she calmly picked up her own phone and walked away without looking back. Meanwhile, on the other side of campus, we meet the male lead, Euntaek. He is also extremely popular and serves as the head of the school's broadcasting club. Euntaek is a perfectionist. He insists on doing everything flawlessly and to the highest standard. With his handsome looks and serious demeanor, he has attracted the attention of many girls. Several have even tried to join the broadcasting club just to get closer to him. Not long ago, one of the female anchors in the club, So-hyun, confessed her feelings to Euntaek. But Euntaek coldly rejected her and promptly kicked her out of the club. Now that So-hyun had been removed, the club was in urgent need of a replacement. At that moment, a student suggested Hwarang for the role, mainly because of her massive online following and strong presence, which made her a perfect fit. So Euntaek decided to approach Hwarang personally and invited her to join the broadcasting team. A girl had fallen asleep on the bus when a boy quietly came over to close the window. Just then, she suddenly woke up and was startled, leaning back in fear. Their eyes met for a brief moment. It turned out the boy, Euntaek, had called out to her several times but got no response, so he had no choice but to close the window himself. Not long after, Hwarang reopened the window, making it obvious that there was some tension between them. As it turns out, the day before, Euntaek had approached Hwarang to invite her to join the school's broadcasting club, but she firmly turned him down. Euntaek, feeling slighted by her attitude, sarcastically mocked her. Hwarang, not one to back down, fired back with some sharp words of her own. Their encounter ended on a sour note. The next day, Hwarang was resting under a tree, listening to the school broadcast. Suddenly, she heard a story that seemed to mirror her own past experiences. When she arrived for the interview, Euntaek remembered her rejecting his invitation and curtly told her that the interviews were already over. But another club member quickly corrected him, saying there was still time left. Reluctantly, Euntaek began the interview, and thanks to Hwarang's impressive skills, she passed with ease. Afterward, Hwarang asked who had submitted the story she'd heard. Euntaek replied that the submission was anonymous and had to remain confidential. On her first official day at the club, Hwarang arrived late. For Euntaek, who is strict and punctual, this was unacceptable. He told her to leave the club immediately. But Hwarang, determined to uncover the identity of the person behind the broadcast story, swallowed her pride and sincerely apologized, promising never to be late again. Euntaek agreed to let her stay, but punished her by assigning her cleaning duties. A nearby classmate was puzzled, wondering why Hwarang would choose the broadcasting club, where she had to do chores, when she could have easily joined another club where she wouldn't have to lift a finger. Hwarang, who had never cleaned before in her life, played music and absent-mindedly drew circles on the floor while mopping. Just then, Eun-taek walked in, and Ho-rang accidentally spilled water on his shoes. He sighed in resignation. That evening, on her way home, Ho-rang ran into her former best friend, So-hyun. So-hyun called out to her and said she could tell her who had submitted the story to the broadcast. But Ho-rang coldly told her to mind her own business and act like they didn't know each other the next time they met. Once the closest of friends, now forced to pretend they're strangers. What had happened between them? Ho-rang was determined to uncover the truth behind the story that had aired on the school broadcast. So, she approached Eun-taek, claiming she wanted to study how the club operated and asked for the login credentials. Eun-taek told her he'd consider it, depending on how she performed. In order to gain his trust, Ho-rang began showing up early every day to clean the broadcasting room. Seeing her consistent effort, Eun-taek started to develop a soft spot for her. They even spent time together taking photos with his camera. But the good vibe didn't last long. One day, Eun-taek discovered that Ho-rang hadn't been doing the cleaning herself. She had been secretly paying classmates to do it for her. Meanwhile, the girl who had previously stolen Ho-rang's photos and was exposed by her in front of everyone had stopped coming to school, too ashamed to face others. Not long after, Ho-rang received a message from a stranger online. Someone had shared sensitive and potentially damaging information about her. Soon, that same girl posted a public statement online, claiming it wasn't her who had stolen Ho-rang's photos. She said that a year ago, Ho-rang had borrowed her account, and everything had been planned by Ho-rang all along. But Ho-rang didn't take these accusations seriously, at least on the surface. However, when she read the last line of the message, a name popped into her head that filled her with dread. Then came another broadcast, once again featuring a story that seemed to be based on Ho-rang's past. This time, she was furious. She stormed into the broadcast room and forcibly stopped the broadcast mid-air. The entire room was stunned by her dramatic outburst. Eun-taek, too, was shocked, and later got reprimanded by a teacher for the disruption. Ho-rang confronted So-hyun. "Were you the one who submitted that story?" So-hyun replied calmly. "Apologize first. Because of what you just did, everyone in the department is being punished." Ho-rang gave in and apologized to the other students. Then she turned back to So-hyun and asked, "Now will you tell me?" Just then, Eun-taek entered the room and cut them off. Still angry about getting scolded by the teacher, he lashed out at Ho-rang, saying some especially hurtful things. The next day, feeling guilty about her outburst, went to apologize to Eun-taek. But he was still upset and refused to forgive her. What started as an apology quickly escalated into another argument. The two parted ways again on bad terms. That evening, Eun-taek sat alone, thinking about their fight. As he reflected, regret began to creep in. Curious about Ho-rang, he looked her up online, only to find her social media flooded with hurtful and sarcastic comments. For the first time, Eun-taek began to understand. Maybe Ho-rang's cold personality wasn't arrogance, it was her way of protecting herself. That night, Ho-rang was walking home by herself when she suddenly heard faint footsteps behind her. It felt like someone was following. Fear crept in, and she instinctively quickened her pace. "That scared me," she gasped, turning around, only to find Eun-taek. "You." "I'm just heading home too," he replied, a little awkwardly. Turns out they lived in the same apartment complex. Though they had just argued not long ago, now they found themselves walking home together, both feeling slightly awkward. Eun-taek deliberately slowed his pace to walk behind her, but Ho-rang wasn't used to having someone at her back and asked him to walk in front. As they neared their building, Eun-taek suddenly called out to her. "Don't you get tired living like this every day?" Ho-rang was taken aback, assuming he wanted to argue again. But Eun-taek went on, "I mean, with everything that's happened between us, all those stories. Did they hurt you?" Ho-rang gave a faint smile. She said she didn't care. She had heard so many rumors about herself over time, that simple moments softened the tension between them. They reconciled, sitting down to chat as if nothing had happened. Just then, Ho-rang realized she had gum stuck to the bottom of her shoe. Eun-taek reached for tissues to help, but Ho-rang, being playful, used Eun-taek's cherished vinyl record to scrape it off, accidentally snapping it in two. The next day, Ho-rang reported to the broadcasting room as usual. Surprisingly, Eun-taek handed her the club's submission account. She logged in, finally able to search for the story's original sender. But there were no clues, no usernames, no contact info. Then she noticed the account was connected to someone on the friend list, So-hyun. Her mind flashed back to a story So-hyun once read aloud. It matched her experience almost word for word. Ho-rang started to suspect So-hyun, but part of her still didn't want to believe it. After all, she and So-hyun had once been incredibly close. They first met in middle school, both late to class, and bonded instantly. Over time, they became inseparable. But something happened later on, something that deeply affected Ho-rang and drove a wedge between them. That day after school, she and Eun-taek bought a new record together. As they parted ways, Eun-taek got a message from his father. But he didn't want to go home right away. Instead, he invited Ho-rang to grab a bite. They picked up some snacks and sat by the road, casually eating and talking under the night sky. The next morning, Ho-rang overslept and missed school. Sitting by the roadside checking her phone, she suddenly received a new message from the story submitter. The shock hit hard. This anonymous sender even knew her real identity. She remembered how So-hyun had once looked at her phone screen. Could she have seen something? At that moment, So-hyun happened to walk by. The moment she saw Ho-rang, she turned to leave, but Ho-rang called after her. Just like before. "It was you, wasn't it?" "What do you mean?" So-hyun replied, trying to deflect. "Don't play dumb," Ho-rang said, stepping closer. "It was you, right?" Memories of the past flooded back. The girl was just about to fall, when suddenly, a hand reached out and caught her. That girl was the younger Ho-rang. And the one who caught her? So-hyun. From that moment on, they became inseparable. They even had matching keychains to symbolize their bond. But one day, a group of school bullies targeted Ho-rang. After that, she changed. She started distancing herself from So-hyun, growing cold and withdrawn. Confused and hurt, So-hyun eventually went to confront her. They cut ties completely. Now, standing in the present, So-hyun finds herself thinking back to those days, still unable to understand what Ho-rang had gone through. Just then, she runs into her again. Not wanting to engage, she turns to leave, but Ho-rang calls out, demanding to know the truth about the submission account. So-hyun acts confused and denies knowing what she's talking about. Frustrated by the accusation, she walks away angry. Later, So-hyun tells Eun-taek that, due to her strained history with Ho-rang, she doesn't want to handle the broadcasting duties with her. So Eun-taek steps in himself and begins training Ho-rang on how to use the broadcasting equipment, strictly insisting she memorize everything, even warning there would be tests. The moment Ho-rang hears test, she thinks about quitting, but then Eun-taek suddenly leans in close. Her heart skips a beat. What did he just say? She didn't catch a single word. She was too stunned. Later, worn out from studying, Ho-rang dozes off in the broadcast room. When Eun-taek walks in and sees her fast asleep under the bright sunlight, he gently takes off his school jacket and hangs it over the window to shade her. Ho-rang stirs awake and sees what he did. Her heart flutters. As Eun-taek turns around, she quickly pretends she just woke up. He hands her a practice exam. After days of effort, Ho-rang surprises even herself. She gets a perfect score. That weekend, a friend invites her to dinner. Through a group photo, she spots that So-hyun will be there too. Remembering their argument, she feels awkward and decides not to go. Meanwhile, at dinner, her friend explains to the others that Ho-rang's parents are usually busy and she often eats alone. Eun-taek overhears this. He quietly excuses himself, but in truth, he finds Ho-rang and asks her to grab sushi with him, pretending it's just a craving. After all, when you like someone, any reason is enough to see them. While they're eating, Eun-taek notices a faint smear of lipstick on Ho-rang's hand. Without a word, he gently takes her hand and wipes it clean with a tissue. Ho-rang's heart skips again. Then Eun-taek speaks up. "I've always suspected you joined the broadcast team for a reason. But if there's something you're going through, tell me, okay?" Later, just as they're about to go their separate ways, Ho-rang returns home, only to find a chilling message waiting from the mysterious sender. Her heart pounding, Ho-rang immediately turns and runs out the door, chasing after Eun-taek. She finds him, grabs his arm, but the words won't come out. Because deep down, maybe everyone wants to appear perfect in front of the person they care about most. One morning, Hwarang's parents prepared a big table full of food to celebrate her birthday. Her mother even made her a birthday cake. But Hwarang didn't seem happy. She quietly told her that she never really liked these things, which left her clearly disappointed. On her way to school, Hwarang ran into Sohyun on the bus. Behind them, some students were whispering and gossiping about Sohyun. Unable to bear the lies, Hwarang stood up and defended her, correcting their assumptions. Sohyun heard everything. Their eyes met for a brief moment, but neither spoke. Later at the student council meeting, someone openly mocked Hwarang. But Hwarang didn't hold back. She snapped back with calm confidence, silencing the room. Determined to prove herself, she volunteered to host one of the main events at the upcoming school anniversary celebration. After the meeting, Eun-taek told her to start doing live broadcasts during lunch to practice her hosting skills. During class, that same mysterious person sent Hwarang another message. This time, they mocked her decision to host, accusing her of just wanting attention. The comment hit hard. How could the sender know this detail? Hwarang began to suspect that the person was at the meeting too. She questioned them directly, but they feigned ignorance. When she pressed further, their response grew visibly hesitant. That afternoon, Hwarang went live for the first time. As the broadcast neared its end, she tossed aside the script and started to speak from the heart. Her honest and emotional words caught both Eun-taek and Sohyun off guard, but to their surprise, it deeply resonated with their classmates. Applause broke out. Even the teachers praised her. Some even said they wanted to contribute stories themselves. After school, Eun-taek invited Hwarang to the broadcasting room to test the sound equipment. It was Hwarang's first time using a soundboard, and she was fascinated, playing around like a kid with a new toy. Then she turned to Eun-taek and asked, "Why didn't you stop me from going off script today?" Eun-taek, known for always sticking to plans, simply replied that he actually agreed with everything she had said. After testing, Eun-taek looked at Hwarang and said, "Thank you for being you." It sounded like a simple thank you, but the warmth in his voice felt almost like a confession. Before leaving, Eun-taek mentioned he had prepared a birthday gift for Hwarang. It was tucked into his backpack. When Hwarang opened it, she found a bottle of cologne. But the scent instantly triggered a painful memory. On a past birthday, someone had bullied her, spraying her with cologne in front of others as a cruel joke. Her breathing grew shallow. Panic surged. She rushed to the window for air, but it wouldn't open. Desperately, she kept pulling. Just when she thought she might suffocate, the window finally opened. And in that moment, she heard Eun-taek's voice calling her name. Only then did Hwarang begin to calm down. One day, while organizing files, Eun-taek accidentally found a video of Hwarang singing. Watching the silly yet adorable Hwarang in the video, Eun-taek couldn't help but smile knowingly. Early the next morning, with the school anniversary event approaching, Eun-taek assigned everyone their tasks. A classmate suggested Hwarang and Eun-taek's relationship grew even closer. After the rehearsal, the group discussed the day's progress, up past grievances, leading to yet another argument. Frustrated, they parted ways on bad terms. Lost footage needed to be res-hot on the rooftop. Hwarang decided to go with him. Noticing that Hwarang wasn't dressed warmly enough for the chilly night, taking photos, listening to music, chatting, and enjoying the breeze. Maybe happiness was really just this simple. Later, as they walked home together, Eun-taek suddenly said, "If I live with you, I'm willing to be quiet, but you refuse to be." Hwarang blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "I like you, White Fox." The unexpected confession left Hwarang completely stunned. The next day, Eun-taek was busy organizing tasks for the students when Hwarang arrived. However, Eun-taek spoke to her with a serious expression, stern face, feeling a little annoyed. Was this really the same person who confessed to her yesterday? At lunch, however, Eun-taek showed his usual caring side. Hwarang couldn't hold back anymore and blurted out, "Is liking someone supposed to be exciting?" Eun-taek replied calmly, "Liking someone also means accepting their flaws." That was when Hwarang finally understood. Eun-taek was someone who separated work and personal feelings completely. It was just a line from the film. As night fell, the live broadcast was about to begin. Horang, a popular online streamer, stepped onto the stage, instantly met with enthusiastic cheers from the audience. As the live stream officially began, viewers eagerly picked up their phones to watch. Horang read out submissions from her audience, sharing her thoughts on each story, and her genuine responses won her widespread praise. During an interactive segment, she started responding to live comments when a question popped up on the screen. Do you have someone special? Shocking accusation broke out online. Horang was being exposed for allegedly bullying a classmate in the past. The festival's joyful atmosphere shattered in an instant. So-hyun, realizing something was wrong, quickly ordered someone to cut the lights. Horang's chest tightened. She tried to leave. Before she could make it off the stage, her knees gave out. She collapsed. Instead of rushing to help, the audience lifted their phones, filming everything. Suddenly, Euntaek appeared. He leapt onto the stage, yanked a wooden divider down to shield Horang from the crowd's prying eyes, then took her by the arm and led her out of the venue as fast as he could. Outside, still trembling, Horang whispered, "I want to be alone." Euntaek looked at her, but finally he let go. On the way home, Horang scrolled through a flood of online comments. Her mind replayed every moment of the humiliation. She wept silently. The next day, Horang didn't come to school. Whispers floated through the halls. Her name was everywhere. Her friends, hearing the rumors, couldn't take it anymore and lashed out in anger. In the chaos, someone's pen hit the floor. That's when Horang appeared. She walked past the group like nothing had happened. No eye contact, no words. She headed straight to the broadcasting room. Minutes later, her voice echoed across the school. Everyone froze. Horang was broadcasting again? Her friends exchanged looks of quiet relief, but a voice nearby muttered, "She's shameless." Zai, furious, clenched her fists. She had to stop herself from swinging. After the broadcast, the students gathered. Euntaek was assigning cleanup tasks when Horang said, "I'll handle cleaning up the auditorium. Alone." He looked at her for a moment, then gave a small nod. But Horang hadn't been late because she overslept. She'd gone to meet someone, an old classmate from middle school. The very person who used to bully her. That classmate had shown up, not to apologize, but because her face had appeared in the leaked photo. Now he was caught up in the drama. She asked if she is still scared to tell the truth. But Horang's silence wasn't guilt. It was protection. She didn't want the world to see how broken she'd once been. Later that day, Euntaek was picking up some equipment when So-hyun stopped him. "Are you really okay with letting Horang clean the auditorium alone?" That simple question stopped him cold. At the auditorium, Horang arrived to find two female classmates waiting. They greeted her, then brought up the scandal from the previous day. But Horang didn't flinch. She stood her ground. Unseen, Euntaek had just arrived. He watched her walk away, strong and composed. But the moment she turned the corner, out of sight, she fell against the wall and sobbed. Euntaek didn't approach. He knew she didn't want anyone to see her like this. That night, Euntaek called her. Not for anything specific, just to be there. But even then, he couldn't find the words. Wanting to ease the tension further, Euntaek invited her to watch a movie together, and Horang gladly accepted. They met in the broadcasting room screening area and started watching the film. As the story progressed, Horang commented on the female lead, saying that if she had never revealed her secret, perhaps she wouldn't have ended up so miserable. Her words struck a chord with Euntaek, making him think about Horang's own situation. Without saying much, they continued watching until both of them eventually fell asleep. The next morning, the sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow into the room. Horang woke up to find Euntaek fast asleep, leaning against the railing. She gazed at him for a long moment, then noticed the sunlight was shining too brightly on Euntaek's face. Gently, she reached over to block the light with her hand. Just then, Euntaek stirred awake and instinctively caught Horang's hand. Their eyes met, lingering for a moment before Horang, flustered, quickly pulled away. The following day, during a broadcasting club meeting, Euntaek accidentally exposed his injured leg. His classmates immediately noticed and started speculating about why the two of them had spent the weekend together. After the meeting, So-hyun, who refused to believe the rumors, stopped Horang and asked her directly what had happened. She also questioned whether the reason for their past argument was connected to all of this. However, Horang remained silent. Later, while organizing documents, So-hyun received an email from a friend. Curious, she opened the attached video and was shocked to see a recording of Jae-in, a broadcasting club member, deliberately throwing Horang's USB drive onto the ground. So-hyun recalled how, on the day of the school festival, Horang had been scolded by Eun-taek over the missing drive. It also reminded her of how Jae-in had secretly checked the security footage a while back. Just as she was piecing everything together, Jae-in walked into the room. So-hyun was about to confront her when Horang entered as well, laughing and chatting with Jae-in as if nothing was wrong. So-hyun couldn't believe how two-faced Jae-in really was. A few days later, the school organized an outdoor recording activity. So-hyun noticed Jae-in taking a group photo with some classmates and immediately stepped in, offering to take the picture for them. While adjusting the camera, she deliberately pressed the wrong button, prompting Jae-in to impatiently give her her phone's password to unlock it. When Jae-in stepped away for a moment, So-hyun seized the opportunity to sneak away with the phone. Hiding in a quiet corner, she used the password to access Jae-in's files. As soon as she opened the gallery, her heart sank. There were countless photos of Horang being bullied, along with the exact images that had been leaked during the festival. It was now undeniable. Jae-in was both the anonymous whistleblower who had submitted the story to the radio club and the person responsible for exposing Horang on the night of the celebration. Realizing her phone was missing, Jae-in frantically searched for it. When she finally found it, she was horrified to see that all the incriminating photos had been deleted. At that moment, her phone buzzed with a message from So-hyun asking her to meet up. Upon arriving at the designated location, she discovered that the person who had taken her phone was none other than So-hyun. Furious, Jae-in demanded to know why So-hyun was meddling in her business. Without hesitation, So-hyun exposed all of Jae-in's actions. Realizing there was no way to keep her secret anymore, Jae-in admitted everything. She explained that back in middle school, she and Horang were in the same class for an entire year, yet Horang had always ignored her. This indifference made her angry, leading her to seek revenge. However, she also clarified that Horang was actually the victim of bullying, not the perpetrator. She had personally witnessed Horang being tormented and had taken photos of those moments. Watching Horang suffer had left a deep impression on her, which was why she recorded everything. Even now, despite being falsely accused of being a bully, Horang refused to admit the truth. Hearing this, So-hyun finally understood why Horang had always kept her distance from her. It was because she never wanted anyone, especially a close friend, to see her in such a vulnerable state. So-hyun recalled that, in the past, she had seen unpleasant messages on Horang's phone but had never realized what she was going through. Now that the truth had become clear, she felt a pang of guilt and sorrow. The next day, when she encountered Horang, she pretended nothing had happened. She wanted to tell Horang everything but held back, knowing that Horang's pride wouldn't allow her to handle such an exposure. In the end, So-hyun and Jae-in made a deal to keep the truth hidden, with So-hyun warning Jae-in never to harm Horang again. Later, Horang's expression darkened upon seeing something, and she hastily left. Before she could go far, Eun-taek called out to her, stopping her momentarily. Shortly after, So-hyun discovered that Jae-in had made a new post online, which infuriated her. She repeatedly tried calling Jae-in, but her calls went unanswered. Meanwhile, Horang confronted Jae-in in person, directly exposing her. As it turned out, Horang had already suspected Jae-in for some time based on various pieces of evidence. However, instead of reacting with fear, Jae-in sneered at her, mocking the way she had looked so pitiful back then. To make matters worse, she deliberately mentioned that So-hyun had also been aware of the truth. At that moment, So-hyun appeared. When Horang saw her, she immediately questioned why she was there. So-hyun quickly explained that she had only recently found out the full truth and that she was genuinely concerned about her. However, Horang, whose pride had already been deeply wounded, refused to listen to any explanation. She turned and walked away. So-hyun ran after her, calling out and telling her that after learning the truth, she had felt incredibly guilty and had spent the whole night feeling miserable. But in the end, she had chosen to pretend she didn't know, because she knew Horang wouldn't want anyone to acknowledge it. Horang, however, simply responded that So-hyun should continue pretending she knew nothing and that she didn't need her sympathy. Those words deeply hurt So-hyun. The next morning, she went to Jae-in's classroom, only to find that Jae-in was nowhere to be seen. She sent Jae-in a message, asking where she was, and received a reply saying that she was in the broadcasting club, about to reveal something to Eun-taek. Upon reading the message, Horang immediately rushed to the broadcasting room. Horang thought In had told Eun-taek everything, so the moment she entered the room, she angrily reprimanded her. However, Jin put on a pitiful act, hoping to make Eun-taek misunderstand Horang. Seeing the situation escalate, Eun-taek couldn't stand it anymore and intervened, explaining that he and Jae-in had only been discussing work. He then scolded Horang for her constant absence over the weekend before asking Jae-in to leave. Afterward, Eun-taek questioned Horang about why she had been avoiding everyone. Horang, unwilling to answer. Then, she quickly left and caught up with Jae-in, dragging her into an empty classroom. There, she demanded to know what Jae-in was trying to do. Jae-in finally revealed her true feelings. She had started all of this because Horang had ignored her first. Back in school, she had once approached Horang to greet her, but Horang had coldly ignored her in front of their classmates, which led to Jae-in being mocked and isolated. From that day on, Jin saw Horang as a hypocrite. Now, she wanted Horang to experience what it felt like to be abandoned. She ordered Horang to quit the broadcasting club and distance herself from her friends, making her taste the pain of isolation. As if that weren't enough, Jae-in then threatened her, claiming that she had a video on her phone. If Horang refused to comply, she would make the footage public. Meanwhile, her friends were worried because they couldn't reach her. So-hyun went to Eun-taek and informed him that Horang had disappeared, but Eun-taek remained calm, saying he was simply waiting for Horang to come to him and reveal the truth herself. So-hyun, noticing the sorrow in Eun-taek's expression, reassured him that Horang would eventually tell him everything. At that moment, Horang was hiding nearby, watching the messages of concern her friends were sending in the group chat. She wanted so badly to reply, yet because of Jae-in's threats, she felt she had no choice but to silently withdraw from the broadcasting club and distance herself from her friends. On the other side, the broadcasting club's routine meeting began. Eun-taek glanced at Horang's empty seat, feeling strangely uneasy. Jae-in, pretending to be casual, asked about Horang's work, but Eun-taek calmly responded that he had given Horang another assignment and had no intention of making her leave. This answer visibly displeased Jae-in. At that moment, a classmate suddenly noticed that Horang had exited the broadcasting club's group chat. Almost simultaneously, Eun-taek received a message from Horang. The moment he saw the content, he immediately got up and left to find her. On his way, Jae-in stopped him and revealed that Horang had only joined the broadcasting club to uncover the identity of the person who had been submitting certain stories. Then, Jae-in confessed that she was the one who had written both of those stories. She claimed that she had been bullied by Horang in the past and had lived in its shadow ever since. Seeing Horang now living her life as if nothing had happened filled her with rage, which was why she wrote those stories, to vent her resentment. Hearing Jae-in's words, Eun-taek couldn't help but recall the past. Horang had asked about the broadcasting club's account multiple times, which made Jae-in begin to suspect her. Meanwhile, Horang returned to the classroom to pack her things and go home. Just as she was about to leave, So-hyun approached her with concern and handed her a piece of bread. However, Horang, unwilling to accept the kindness, let go. Frustrated, So-hyun finally asked whether the rumors about her were true. Without hesitation, Horang admitted that she was indeed the perpetrator of the bullying. Saying nothing more, she turned around and left the classroom. That night, Horang received a message from Eun-taek, saying that he had been waiting downstairs for her. Without a second thought, Horang ran down to meet him. When they finally stood face to face, Eun-taek told Horang that he had been waiting for her to tell the truth all along. He also confessed that he was afraid the online rumors might be true. Hearing this, Horang felt a sting of betrayal. Eun-taek didn't believe her either. She coldly told Eun-taek to stop waiting and added that being labeled as the perpetrator was easier than being the victim. Disappointed, Eun-taek said that he regretted ever falling for Horang and agreed to let her leave the broadcasting club. As Eun-taek walked away, Horang watched his retreating figure, unable to hold back her tears. This girl was truly overwhelmed with sadness. The next morning, Horeng told her mother that she wanted to drop out of school. Her mom had heard some rumors about her from junior staff at work. Instead of blaming her, she encouraged Horeng to face her problems head-on rather than run away from them, and urged her to hang in there. Meanwhile, the manipulative girl pretended to be pitiful in front of classmates, gaining their sympathy and making them believe Horeng had once bullied her. Eun-taek, who had just argued with Horeng, seemed dejected. A friend tried to comfort him, saying that in love, no one should be the one always giving in, and that nothing is more painful than being unable to see the one you love. At that moment, Eun-taek received a message from his mother, asking to meet. Eun-taek's parents had divorced when he was young, and he had been living with his father ever since. His mother had promised to return often, but always failed to show up, leaving him deeply disappointed. Though he initially wanted to refuse, he finally agreed to meet his mother after all those years apart. Eun-taek arrived at the meeting spot and finally reunited with his mother. They shared a meal together. Afterward, Eun-taek politely said goodbye, thinking that was the end. But as he stepped outside, his mother chased after him, calling out his name. She was afraid of missing this chance, not knowing when they might meet again. She confessed that she regretted not hugging Eun-taek a little longer before leaving years ago and admitted that she had come back many times, only to lack the courage to face him again. His mother felt remorseful not only for breaking her promises to Eun-taek, but also for treating her son the same way she had treated a lover, always leaving without a word. At that moment, Eun-taek remembered something Horeng had once told him. He didn't understand it back then, but now he finally grasped the pain Horeng had been hiding and the fear that stopped her from telling the truth. The next day, Horeng heard Eun-taek's voice through a school broadcast. It turned out Eun-taek finally understood the meaning behind Horeng's words, the suffering of holding back the truth. Horeng, overcome with emotion, couldn't help but cry. As the college entrance exam approached, Horeng still hadn't returned to school, sparking rumors that she was planning to drop out. Meanwhile, the manipulative girl was still spreading rumors about Horeng bullying her. But suddenly, So-hyun appeared, leaving the manipulative girl speechless and embarrassed. On the other side, Eun-taek stood in the broadcasting room and announced there would be a live stream that day. The classmates were curious about who would host it, but Eun-taek calmly replied, "Don't worry, the host is arriving soon." And just then, Horeng appeared. "If you were bullied at school, would you have the courage to speak out in public?" Horeng appeared at the school's broadcasting club. She was ready to reveal the truth about campus bullying. It turned out that the night before, she had taken the initiative to find Eun-taek and tell him that she wasn't the perpetrator of school bullying, but the victim. Hearing the truth, Eun-taek was heartbroken and hugged her tightly. Horeng then told Eun-taek everything that had happened. Eun-taek told Horeng to leave the rest to him. Eun-taek then planned a school-wide live stream to reveal the truth. When So-hyun turned on the classroom screen, everyone, especially the manipulative girl, was shocked. Horeng appeared on screen and admitted she was a victim of bullying. 2 years ago, on her birthday, she had been invited by friends to celebrate at a karaoke bar, where she was then bullied. She hadn't dared speak out because she was afraid others would look at her differently. Later, when she was falsely accused of being the bully, she didn't even try to defend herself, because in her mind, being a victim was more shameful than being a perpetrator. But now she finally understood that the people who cared about her just wanted the truth. So she decided to stop running and speak out, not just for herself, but for those who had always cared about her. At the same time, So-hyun confronted the manipulative girl and told her to stop, but she started making excuses. Then So-hyun played a video showing the manipulative girl bullying Horeng. When she saw the video, the manipulative girl's confidence crumbled. So-hyun handed the video to the other classmates, and as they all watched, the manipulative girl became flustered under their judging gazes. She finally confessed everything, but lashed out by saying, "Weren't you all gossiping behind Horeng's back too?" This angered the classmates who had just learned the truth. Some even rushed in, ready to teach the manipulative girl a lesson. Horeng, meanwhile, declared that although she had been afraid of how people would see her, she no longer wanted to run away, because now she had people who loved her by her side. A rare smile lit up her face as she walked out of the broadcasting room, and Eun-taek pulled her into a warm hug. Just then, Jiwon also arrived at the broadcasting club and gave Ho-rang a huge hug. Everyone was happy for Ho-rang for finally speaking her truth. Meanwhile, the manipulative girl was now seen by her classmates as a manipulator, and Eun-taek asked her to pack up and leave the broadcasting club. That weekend, Ho-rang and Eun-taek had their first official date. They ate together, went shopping, and even took photos together. That night, the usually cold and distant Ho-rang took the initiative to express her feelings to Eun-taek. After all they had been through, they finally began their beautiful love story. On the way home, So-hyun came to find Ho-rang, bringing her favorite food. Just like old times, the two sat together in their usual spot, eating and chatting, and they became best friends again. This marked the end of the drama. Thank you so much for all your support over time. If fate allows, we'll meet again.